4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control magazine.
Well, hello once again and welcome to another edition of Racing World. It's a massive show today. The two big features in the show, of course, are the Italian Grand Prix, and we'll catch up with Bob McMurray shortly, and the Portland IndyCar race. And that's where we're heading first. And here's my review of Portland IndyCar. Practice and qualifying arrived on a day that stands out above all others, September 11, and as the entire IndyCar field paid tribute to those fallen on that tragic day some 20 years ago, it was a fitting respect for everyone that was involved in the World Trade Center and something that will never be forgotten. The Portland International Raceway, 1.9 miles once round, 12 turns, and a beautiful day, 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. All four Penske cars failed to make it into the Fast Six, and of course the one that it impacted the most, Joseph Newgarden, as he's still in the championship hunt, and rather frustrating for him. Another one that struggled to make it, but got in there and qualified 7th, ultimately, Palau Award. But you could clearly see the frustration that he didn't make the Fast Six, and that extra bonus point was something that just went missing. And to our pole sitter, Alex Palau, now down to just 10 points between him and Palau Wood, with this extra bonus point for taking out pole in a time of 58.7701. Just a fantastic time, and just to confuse us all, he's in the PNC Bank colours this weekend as well. Onwards then, and 24 hours later, race time. Great crowd in Portland. Good to see people back at the track, and it was an interesting start, shall we say. That's the very least we can say about it, as the field stormed off down towards the first Turn 1 chicane section, which we'll remember years ago, Dixon nearly ended his championships there, and it was almost looking like the same case again today, as the field just went everywhere. Controversy, maybe, as you're now on board with Dixon alongside Rossi, chasing his teammate Alex Palau down into Turn 1. They all opt to take the escape road route, nearly colliding with each other, but they took that route and said that they would take the penalties that come with that, which is by going through the cones, which you're just about to see here now. So in theory, the drivers felt that justice had been served. They let cars through, they carry on, everyone lives happily ever after. However, IndyCar Race Control decided no, and those cars that did overshoot were then sent to the back of the field, and that was dramatic, because that was the changing point, part one of this race. And it was Palau Award then that was clearly out front, and you'd have to say, he was going to win the race. Rahal had tucked in behind him, and it was really looking like an award race. Then the first of the things started. Callum Illott in his debut race for Juncos stops. There were quite a few other factors that came into the race, but it was Rahal that settled into a good race rhythm with Palau Award in there with him, and you'd have to think that it was going to be one of the two of them that would ultimately take the race. There were some interesting things that weren't seen on camera, but I heard on the IndyCar radio network with Ryan Hunter-Reay banging wheels with Romain Grosjean. You got to kind of think, which one of you's getting the DHL seat next year? But in the end, it came down to a set of fuel stops and strategies that played themselves out. And the guys that were penalised early on, ultimately, through fuel stops and the time in which they happened, phased themselves back into this race. And that was probably the next most decisive point in the race. There are other things in there, of course. Will Power banging in to Simon Pagenaud. Some may say Simon Pagenaud banging into Will Power. Either way, two Penske cars hitting each other. Not a good scenario. But come what may, at the end of the day, after all the restarts and the final sprint to the finish, it was Alex Palau taking his third race win of the year and his second race win at a track that he's never been to before. How about that for a stat? And he now leads the Drivers' Championship once again. And as always, straight after the race, I joined the IndyCar Zoom press conference, and I asked a question of Alex about what it's really going to take to win this championship.
I don't think it's super hard. As long as I continue performing on track, everything is going to take care of itself. So at the moment, I'm not struggling. Maybe I'll struggle a bit at Long Beach, but at the same time, Jimmy's been a really big help for me. I have to say, after Indy Road Course, I sat with him, and he was telling me that he was on his NASCAR career, he had moments like that, and that he still won. So he told me some tricks. He did the same after Gateway, and hopefully we can get that championship home.
All right, we have some questions virtually from our pal David Turner down in New Zealand. Scott, he's asking, did you suffer any damage at the start?
I think we just had a cut tire. I know the steering was a little off kilter. I think Felix just hit us kind of right in the left rear, but nothing. I think that really hindered us throughout the race. So definitely lucky in that situation, I think.
Well, Scott, another one for us from New Zealand. Alex Palau. Just what makes this guy up? He's a very different teammate to some of the ones that you've had before.
He's just an amazing person. Look at him. He's always smiling. I always tell him he's too nice. He's got to be more of a, what did Jenna say, a jerk. I used a different word, but he's obviously very adaptive. He's done a tremendous job in junior categories, but he's a bit annoying sometimes when he's asking a lot of questions, but I think that's a good thing. But as you can see with just adverse situations like today, he didn't lose it and still made it happen when it counted. So definitely done a massive job this year, and what him and the 10-car guys have been doing has been very special. But yeah, he's just a nice person, man. Too nice.
And onwards now to the rest of our post-race summary. And as always, with the great help of IndyCar, we get to talk to a lot of the drivers as they help organise them for us. So first up, Jack Harvey and his performance today.
Obviously we got a little bit of help with all the carnage in turn one. But before the race, we asked a pretty clear question as to what the rules are going to be if people had to go through the escape road, and managed to stay on track and pick up a few there. But strategy was great today, and if we can combine the best bits of all of our weekends, then I think we've got a really competitive team, and we can come and try and run at the front in the IndyCar series. And obviously just want to get a great result for everyone at MyChat Racing, Automation, XM, and got 2 more races to try and get it done.
Then one for our Kiwi viewers and fans of Scott McLaughlin. It's a chance to catch up with him. Great performance from Scott today. Led the race for a little while as well. So I think we're seeing major improve from this guy, and it was never, ever in doubt.
Pretty good day for us in the PPG Chevy. Led my first IndyCar laps, which was pretty cool. The strategy was really working for us to potentially be in the top 3 there, but unfortunately mid-race yellow, and it sort of put us behind the 2 stoppers. So our strategy was pretty aggressive. Potentially had like top 6, top 7 feel, but made a couple of little errors that sort of cost us on the outlaps. But getting better and better, like I said, leading our first IndyCar laps just shows we're showing promise, and got through a pretty big melee at the start. So yeah, good points, and we'll just keep pressing on to Laguna and Long Beach coming up in the next couple of weeks.
The hard luck man of the race in many ways, Graham Rahal, led for a long time. Thought that maybe this could have been the day where Graham scored a win, but unfortunately it wasn't to be.
Portland's come to a close for us here on the Total Courts machine. As you guys can probably imagine, I'm pretty upset. If nothing else, is disappointed. Our guys did an excellent job today. We played the strategy right. Unfortunately, all the guys that caused the crash at the start are all the guys that won. So it's a shame. Don't know what else to say. I'm obviously disappointed, but the high points are that they definitely knew we were here. Our boys did an excellent job in the pits once again. Car was very strong, out leading. I don't know how many laps we led, but it was a lot of fun to be out there and getting the Total machine out front. So head down, finish all the laps here, another top 10. It should have been a win. I can't help but say it. We played it perfect. It's just sometimes in racing, when the yellows fall and everything else, the bounces don't go your way. Today was one of those days, but chin up and on to Monterey we go.
And then, of course, our likeable, lovable, maybe you like him, maybe you don't, but he's always good for something, and that was willpower, and a bit of a mixed bag, and of course not helping by crashing into teammate Simon Paguenad.
We had a very good car today. We just was unlucky on a few incidents with people. Obviously at the start was a real pity because that put us on the back foot immediately, and then on a couple of exchanges I got hit again. So, but which didn't really. It was so close with for having a much better result. Like we just got just had bad cold tire outlaps and kind of got eaten up a bit. So I feel like our potential is about 6th place, but we finished 13th. So yeah, it's one of those days you just survive, and you would have finished really well.
And then a driver that we're not quite sure where he's going to end up next year, Ryan Hunter-Reay. We sort of thought that maybe he'd stay at Andretti's, maybe he's gone. It sounds like he has gone, and Romain Grosjean will be there. But anyway, it was not too bad a day for Ryan.
Yeah, we had an excellent start. Moved up, 7 or 8 spots, up from 27th. At one point, actually we were 14th. So we had a really good start, had really good pace in the car, passing cars out there, and then just the wrong yellow at the wrong time, put us all the way back to P21 again or something like that, which is one of those deals, nothing's really going right. So fortunately I got these guys to smile with. Had the pace today. Things were going our way until it wasn't. So good to see Alex finish P2.
A driver that I got to spend quite a bit of time with at the Indy 500 a few years ago, and actually that was when he won the race, Simon Paguenad. And again, Simon, perhaps a driver under threat at the moment, not sure what deal is in place for 2022. We think it could be with Shank, but we're not sure. That's the hot rumour. But again, unfortunate day for Simon.
We had a good race, excellent race going on today. We really fixed the Menard Chevrolet for really good pace in the race. We had a tremendous start, avoided the carnage, and we ran in the front of the field the whole race. Unfortunately, we had a bad stop and got shuffled in the mix on the last sequence and got together with Will. So unfortunately, we spun and stalled. It certainly cost us probably top 10, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's disappointing for sure, as I think we did a great job to recover from qualifying. So tune in for next week, Laguna. That's one of our best tracks.
And then the new guy in the series, Callum, Illott, racing for Junkos Hollinger Racing at this event, and a pretty good, solid performance apart from obviously mechanical issues with the car.
Overall, an interesting race for sure. Had a bit of contact at the start, carried it through. I think at that time we were P8 maybe with everyone having to make way and move from positions. Honestly, it was going well. We were in a good position, did the first pit stop. I think came out maybe 11, 13, something like that. And then unfortunately we had a bit of an electrical issue. Nobody's fault, these things happen. But that put us on a stop on the track. Then from there, we got the car back. The team worked incredibly hard to get it back out. Unfortunately, 10 or so laps down, I'm not sure. But at least we got the car back out. We got back into the rhythm, was doing well, and there was a last caution. With the damage that we had, it was a little bit bent steering and all of that. And the way it was, we didn't want to interfere with the race, so we decided to retire the car at the end. But overall, it was a positive first race. We got some laps done. It was unfortunate to have some problems, but that's how it is. We move on to Laguna Seca. Thank you to everyone for coming and watching. Thanks to Ricardo and Brad for setting this all up, and we'll see what we can do in Laguna.
It'll be interesting to see how Callum Illott goes with Junkos Hollinger Racing for those remaining 2 rounds and whether or not he lands a seat in 2022. But so did the points table. There were 11 drivers in contention prior to the start of this round. 5 of them we always thought were the ones that were going to be there at the end, and it is just those 5 that remain in contention with the 2 rounds remaining. Our leader has changed. The gap has got slightly bigger over what it was before. Dixon stays in 4th place, but the gap has got slightly bigger as well to get back to the top. It was 42 points, it's now 49. It's all within cooey of each other, and really, other than Ericsson, who's probably just hanging on for dear life in there now, the rest of them still do mathematically have a chance, and we'll find out what happens when they get to Laguna in just over a week. Well, that wraps up IndyCar, and joining me on the line now from our remote locations once again, Bob. What did you take of that whole IndyCar thing firstly, before we get to the mythical F1?
Yeah, the focus has to be, from our point of view, Scott Dixon, doesn't it? In many ways, and Scott McLaughlin. Scott McLaughlin had a better race than he has up to now, in the last few anyway. Scott Dixon, it's slipped further away from him. Not only is he further back in points to the leader, his teammate, but also he's got less races in which to make that up. I was a little bit confused at the beginning when this accident took place on the first turn and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure the drivers are as well. It seems they've said that after the race in many ways. So, it was a good race. It's a good track to have a race.
Yeah.
In the end, that whole strategy played out for them anyway. So in the end, what happened on the first turn and being penalised was washed out of the window. It didn't really matter. But it is further away from Scott now, a little bit. Further away from Newgarden as well. It's further away for other people because the leader won. Simple as that.
It's just the way the points shuffle. But getting on to the big topic, and of course one very passionate to you, and I can see that McLaren logo blazing on your shirt today.
Old team t-shirt.
Hey, I just did this to wind you up. So the last time that Daniel Ricciardo had a win, Monaco 2014, the first 1-2 for McLaren since 2010. That's how long you've been going on about the beloved McLaren. And the first
I was right. They're back.
And the first one since 2012, which was in Brazil. So, great weekend, wasn't it? Interesting Grand Prix. Both events that we follow had fantastic races, really, over the weekend.
Yeah. As far as McLaren is concerned, I mean, it's fantastic and it's wonderful and all sorts of things. A 1-2, it is amazing. And it was done on merit. Don't listen to all the bull about people. You're lucky to do. He's lucky to do that. It was one on merit.
Yeah.
I will have to say, before anything else, though, that the old saying comes to mind: one swallow in summers. I mean, there's got to be a few more swallows flying past before that summer is confirmed. But it can only be good. It can only be good stuff. Those things are quick in a straight line. And I mean, let's go back to the beginning. The whole sprint race thing at the weekend, I'm not into that yet. I mean, not like it is now anyway. It's not quite right. I can understand the sentiment to doing it, but no, I'm just not into it. I prefer this, qualifying race and that sort of stuff. So yeah, from the race's point of view, from McLaren's point of view, the winner's point of view, first of all, because something else happened in the race that we've got to talk about. It's a little ironic. Have you heard the story? You know the story about a butterfly flaps its wings in the Brazilian jungle and a gale happens the other side of the world? Have you
no, I didn't know that we turned into a National Geographic show here.
Okay. Well, there is a theory about wind. If a butterfly flaps its wings a little bit somewhere, that creates a puff of wind, which gives a bigger puff of wind. That whole scenario, almost a whole race, was kind of the butterfly, if you like, was Daniel Ricciardo getting past Max Verstappen in the first place.
Yeah.
So suddenly he was in the lead. People's tactics had to change. And then for the two teams who are really, really, really good at pit stops to both have bad pit stops, Red Bull disastrous and Mercedes perhaps less than disastrous, but still a long time. And for the team that has traditionally been a little slower, shall we say, on pit stops, McLaren, to put a really good one in, 2.4 seconds, that compounded the whole thing as well. So, I mean, all in all, it was an escalation of issues that caused the issue in the end, which basically culminated in a slight coming together at the first chicane, second part of the first chicane later in the race. So, yeah, it was a bit ironic about the pit stops, the reversal of fortunes in the pit stops. I'm fed up with when that incident came up. I'm fed up with people saying, well, it's a racing incident. It wasn't a racing incident. It's because Verstappen was pushing the envelope, and he has been all the time, and he's been caught out. And it's interesting that Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, who also always say it's a racing incident when Max is at fault, but when Lewis is at fault, it's hung, drawn, quarter him, whatever. But this is a racing incident. Well, no, it wasn't. I mean, I'm just fed up with the fact that Horner and Matt and Marko were so much quiet about this. They knew it was Max's fault, and in my opinion, Max's fault. Yeah. And that's all there is to it. He didn't need to do that. The halo proved its absolute worth, as everybody has said. Again, I didn't like it when it came out in the first place. I think it was ugly. Used to it now, can't even notice it.
Yeah, but it's the same with IndyCar.
It proved its worth enormously there. So, I mean, that's good. Commentate. I was going to Damon Hill commentating on TV, and he was saying that it could be seen as, not his words, but a professional foul almost. Max knew what he was doing.
Yes, I've read that this morning too.
The criticism that he's got for saying that, what absolute bullshit. However, can everybody sit behind a keyboard, as I am now, and tell a world champion that he should or should not say something? Absolute rubbish. If he's got an opinion, he should be allowed to say it. At least he's not a wishy-washy TV commentator that sucks up to every driver that comes on. He's saying what he thinks, and that's the right thing to do. So, I mean, keyboard warriors have got their own opinions. I've got mine. I've never done it before. No, very few of us have. Very few of us have. But when somebody has been a world champion and he's fought against Schumacher and all that sort of stuff, then I think you've got to listen to his opinion is very valid. Johnny Herbert, the same. I don't like all the commentators. I don't listen to half of them, but they've got an opinion, and I think it's very valid. So if Damon Hill wants to call it like he sees it, so he should.
Right, he's got it right. It's no different than saying about the IndyCar event, you know, should the start have been waved off or restarted, or why did they all go into the first turn too fast, whatever. It happened just as this incident happened, and you have to accept that, and then you can have an opinion on it as well. You know, I've watched various onboards of the IndyCar thing, and you kind of start to lay blame at all sorts of people, but at the end of the day, it's done in the blink of an eye as well. These guys, whether it's Formula One, so we'll use that as the example right now, Red Bull and Mercedes, it's just like America's Cup racing. There is millions and millions of dollars at stake, and you're playing for keeps, aren't you? Max is employed to do a job. Lewis is employed to do a job. That's what they've got to do. That's what they get paid to do.
Yeah, but they've got to complete the job, and I don't think Verstappen had any intention of completing the job there.
No, probably not.
Once again, this is my opinion, and there's the keyboard and all sorts of things, but when you look at that incident happening, I cannot for the life of me see how Verstappen thought he was going to get through that corner once Lewis had closed it down, which is Lewis's every right to close it down. And with Verstappen having an that being deemed to be at fault in that accident and getting the three grid race penalty for the next race in Russia in a couple of weeks' time, fair enough. The stewards who are, you know, you've got to expect their expert in this sort of thing. If they give him a penalty, that's what it is.
It's the authority.
It's reasonably consistent, because if you think of Bottas's little incident in Hungary, got grid penalty, you know, it's reasonably consistent. In their opinion, Max Verstappen could have avoided the accident, and he was deemed to have
case closed.
End of story.
Yeah. So moving back to McLaren, quite significant for Ricciardo to get that win, because, as he said, it's Daniel's back, you know, and whether that carries on and we see it, as you said, using your butterfly theory, whether we see it again in Sochi or not, who knows? But it was significant in terms of the Ricciardo versus Norris little battle, as well as that finally Daniel actually had won over Lando in this instance, but the 1-2 supported the whole McLaren cause. So overall, great weekend for them. But you've got to continue momentum like that. A one-off doesn't count.
No. And as regards Daniel having won over on Lando, that only happened because Daniel was further ahead in the first place on the grid, and he got ahead. I think either of those two would have been able to do what the other one did all the way through a race. It's slightly, just for a fleeting moment, I felt a little bit sorry for Lando, that he's the one that's been, you know, there all the time and getting the car home, and he was second. But then seeing the pleasure that it brought to everybody because of Daniel Ricciardo winning, and the pleasure it brought to him, and the fact that he has sort of broken a mental barrier, I would hope, about driving that car, then that can only be good. I mean, it's fantastic, really, to see.
I thought, as I said before, both races that we both supported over the weekend were fantastic. And if you look at the rest of the news that came out of there, obviously the big ongoing drama. George Russell now ultimately confirmed at Mercedes. We know Valtteri's going to Alpha, so that's done and dusted. Tsunoda admitted the other day that he was actually fearing for his survival at AlphaTauri.
People were surprised about it.
Yeah. So he's got that locked in. So now it really comes down to who else ends up at Alpha, whether Giovinazzi can stay there. I have my doubts on that one. And then what happens with the Haas battle? I think Schumacher might end up at Alpha.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of water to go under that bridge. Giovinazzi did not fill the expectations of the team when he's kind of under probation a little bit at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether he did himself a bit of bad or not, I don't know. If you actually go back to the end of the race there, that is the most magnificent podium, you would say, in Formula One. Such a shame that the crowd, what makes that podium so good is the crowd underneath it every year.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a shame. But I did hear a statistic, and I can't repeat it now because I don't know the actual statistic, but it's an awful long time since any team have had a 1-2 on the podium. Okay. Certainly the first time this year that any team have had a 1-2 on the podium. And for it to come to McLaren is
not what we expected, really.
No. I mean, I had doubts in the beginning about, Zach being there and changing and all that sort of thing, but ultimately it's worked out right. And if the same thing could happen for Williams, for instance, and they did pretty good. I mean, Russell was 9th. Yeah. He got a point. Latifi was in front of him for a while, was 11th. So, good on Williams as well. They're hopefully with their new driver, Albon in there, and hopefully all that will come good for them as well, because we needed to. Ferrari, it's their home, but was a near sort of race for them, wasn't it? It was all the rest of it. Bottas from the back of the grid to the front of the grid, wonderful. What can I say? He wouldn't have been on the podium but for the Perez incident, and that was bizarre. He should have given the position back anyway.
So I did this to rapid fire you with a bombardment of stuff before we move on to other parts of the sport from the weekend. Yeah. A lot of it you've already answered, but I'll give it to you anyway, and you can give me yes, no answers on it. How's that sound? So the things that we can take away from Monza, does Daniel Ricciardo still have it?
Yes.
Okay. Hamilton versus Verstappen, not a racing incident, a deliberate incident?
An incident that Verstappen could have pulled out of. Therefore, in that case, it was kind of deliberate.
Do we like the halo now, or do we think the airbox helped in that incident?
I don't think the airbox would have made much difference. That wheel was on top of the halo, and the halo, was it 12,000 kilos it supports? Well, there's only one Formula One car, but that could have been serious.
This was the second sprint race weekend that we had in the weekend, or this last weekend, second sprint race of the season. Apart from sort of screwing up how I think of how the race weekends work, are we a fan of sprint races now? We've had 2 of them, or not?
No.
No, I agree.
I'm not. It happens too late at night.
And Valtteri Bottas deserved everything he got. Should he have deserved to stay at Mercedes, or will this move just cement Valtteri as a driver that did very well, but was part of the system?
As has been said, that was a really good race from Valtteri. It's a shame he didn't do it 5 or 6 other times during the year. Yeah, that's when the decisions were being made, not on this race. So you won't know if it's the right decision until what he does at Alpha, or until George Russell does better or worse. It was difficult to do a lot better, and it could cause a major problem within the team being there. But good on him as well. And I've got to say as well that McLaren is a rocket ship on the straight, clearly, because it stayed ahead without DRS and with DRS going on behind it. So other places where it's going to be fast, I don't know.
So she turned one will be interesting. Yeah. And then the last part of it, which you did touch on, and that is Monza, spiritual home of Ferrari. Not a bad weekend for Ferrari, but the thing that we really missed, even though there was some there, the lack of the Tifosi.
It is a shame, but it's one of those things. They still seem to make a fair amount of noise. And it still seems that they like people who got a bit of passion, a bit of fun, and a bit of Italian about them. In Daniel Ricciardo, he got as much of a shout as a Ferrari driver. So all good. I mean, and you got to give a shout out to other drivers in that. Really, I mean, there were some good performances and good little racing down the stretch with all.
Another solid performance from the Alpine cars as well. So we're definitely seeing some improvement in that area. Moving on to other events at Monza that obviously New Zealanders particularly would be interested in. Both Liam Lawson and Marcus Armstrong back out there. Not bad weekends, not fantastic either, but not bad.
No, I think Liam would have had a good weekend. I mean, it was tainted by the extinguisher going off when he was doing really well in the feature race. I still haven't got to the bottom of that why. I've read that a lump of rubber came up and hit the external extinguisher button and it went off. But that's happened 2 or 3 times before, so you would think they would have done something about that. I don't know. Yeah. But that was a shame. If that's the case, that was an absolute He's 72 points, 8th in the championship still. He's not really where he wants to be because, as I said before, he wants to be a Formula One driver, not a sports car driver. So I think hopefully he'll get another season in Formula 2 because I think he certainly deserves it. But quite a good result overall. Marcus Armstrong, yeah, he was his weekend was a typical weekend for him, kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. He got in the points in the end, and that was good. But there's I think in Formula 2 it really depends on the team you're driving as much as anything else, because some teams have good weekends, some don't. And clearly Prema is a team that is really good. Got to congratulate Oscar Piastri as well, who's who's doing bloody well in the whole thing. So
I think what
we
have to say for the Kiwi, the Kiwi 2 that are in F2, once again, praise goes out to these two young guys. People tend to forget just what sort of pressure, even at that level, that those young kids are under, and they're both doing a tremendous job, and they are a future generation of sport coming from New Zealand. So, good on them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the mere fact we can criticise them in terms of international top-level motorsport,
it's something
is good in that they're just not non-entities. They're there. They're making a difference. They're doing all there is. Talking about making a difference as well, Jackson Evans in the another ex-Elite Academy driver ended up second in the championship for the Porsche Super Cup. He didn't have particularly good racing at Monza. He got mired in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th place, that sort of thing. So second in the championship. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, it's fantastic. And again, a product of McLaren racing in Australia, and Matt Campbell, came out of there as well. So they've done some great things. So, talking about Australia, there's a few things happening over there. The thing that we had rumour of, which is officially confirmed, Andre Heimgartner at Brad Jones Racing next year. I think that could be a good move for Andre. It's time for him to spread his wings a little bit. I just hope that Brad Jones can support him as a team.
Yeah, well, Nick Percade is out of there now, so he's wandering around in the ether. Whether he's going to end up at Kelly's or Kelly Grove, whatever it's called these days, I don't know. But certainly Andre's got a berth, which is the most important thing. But Supercars is so confused on the season now. Gold Coast has been cancelled, as we know. So where their season is happening, how it's happening, I don't know. Plus they're going through this whole selling procedure where it's been whittled down from about 5 bidders to apparently 1 preferred bidder now. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and they're trying to bring in the Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, I don't know, a new car, whatever it is.
We'll have to get our mate Fogues on the line maybe next week and grill him on what's happening.
Yeah, actually it would be good for perhaps you get a whole show with him and you there, because he would certainly have opinions about it. So
if you're listening, we're thinking of you.
Might go out of 30 minutes, it might turn into an hour. So, it's a very confused situation in supercars.
No, we don't even know whether we're going to truly get a Bathurst in this year or not.
I think they'll make Bathurst, because I think they have to make Bathurst.
They'll sacrifice other events to get Bathurst if they have to within New South Wales. So plenty happening there. And obviously in New Zealand, it's not too far away to the season starting here, and hopefully COVID levels will allow that as well. So that's something that we just got to.
Oh, that's right. At least we will have a season. It's not going to be a TRS season. There's going to be 1 Grand Prix, and that's Toyota Gazoo Racing New Zealand putting a huge amount of effort into that, and Toyota New Zealand itself. And as a Kiwi Driver Fund trustee, we've got to look for funding for some drivers to help them out as well, to get as many Kiwis there as possible. The whole Toyota 86 season is going to happen in one form or another. Lockdowns permitting, obviously we can't say that. So we do have a season of racing in New Zealand. The GT series is looking really good. But once again, that's in a state of flux, because there's various bidders coming up to be the promoters for the forthcoming seasons after this season. So, things don't stand still in motor racing, do they? They don't.
No, the only thing that stands still at the moment is the fact that we're still in lockdown.
Exactly. While you've got this in front of you, while you've got a keyboard in front of you, you can rule the world in your own mind. So why not?
Well, I think we've kind of solved a few situations. We know the fact that, both events were fantastic events over the weekend. Both championships are very, very much alive. IndyCar had 11 that were up for grabs, 11 possible combinations of drivers. It's now confirmed as 5 with 2 rounds remaining. Ideally, really, I think it's almost verging on 3. So next weekend at Laguna will say.
Yeah, you had a chat with Callum, I know. What do you think of his performance first up over there?
Probably not bad. What amazes me the most with that is the fact that Junkos were very clear early on to say that they wanted to try 3 drivers over these 3 weekends, and then countered that with, no, we're running Illott for all 3, which smacks to me of the fact that they're close to doing a deal with Illott, because why would you do it otherwise?
Well, money, I suppose. Money. Could have bought it.
So, but the interesting thing is that, there's the constant numbers coming out of IndyCar are suggesting that it'll be a 27 car field next year on a permanent basis, which, there's a couple of tracks that actually can't cope with that. They pit lane capacities are 25. But if you're talking 27, the only thing that you can take away from that, or the major thing you take away from that, is IndyCar is incredibly healthy right now. Regardless of anything else in the world, it's a healthy series. Foundation was set by Tony George, but obviously Roger Penske's making sure that it's healthy. So I think it's great. Illott, look. If he's a young driver that needs a drive, and if Europe's not a place, then America's a place, isn't it? So good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It is a very viable and very commercially viable series. It's doing better than NASCAR in terms of climbing up the rankings. Definitely. And it's certainly good racing. So yeah, I mean, we'll come to the next Formula One and the next Formula One, and hopefully they're racing in 2022 with engine formula or the new car and all that sort of thing. Will be better, and then the engine formula to change in years to come. Maybe that will get rid of the fact that they have to have a sprint race. I mean,
we don't
need to have a sprint race, do they?
We've made that decision. Now they're gone. Well, I'll let you go, because I know that you've got a busy day in lockdown 4, probably, I don't know, doing whatever it is that we don't do all day. I'll get the show finished and get it out. And next week...
I haven't got a lot to do, but I'm really keen to get on and do it. So,
next week we can analyse Laguna and maybe catch up with Fogues and talk about Australia as well, and see just what isn't really happening in Australia. But once again, Bob, thanks very much for joining us. Great insight to Formula One. I think we agreed on most things, so that's a bit of a miracle as well.
And look up the butterfly theory. You'll see what I mean. One little drop makes a storm.
It's a deal. Well, my thanks again to Bob for his contribution towards the F1 and the overall view of everything that's motorsport. And to you, thanks again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Next week, well, we'll look at Laguna Seca for IndyCar, try and catch up with our mate Fogues across the ditch, find out everything that's going on V8 Supercar as well. But until then, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you again real soon.